Fox and Friends just deserves a standing ovation. You this morning bringing us into this national television show with your local pictures and the national anthem. Just a beautiful job, America.
Yeah.
I'm always impressed.
Me too.
None of those are repeats.
None.
You keep sending them in, friends at foxnews.com. We get to enjoy them, share them with you. Thank you so much.
Good morning.
Nice hairdo.
It's my turn to be on the hot seat.
It is
for the
in
new
your
hair.
turn, yes. I like it.
Thank you.
Just a little new.
Yeah, just a new little color.
End of summer,
End of
kiss.
summer something. Summer kiss.
She described it as caramel.
Yeah, that's how it was described to me.
I think it looks great.
I love
great.
it.
Yeah.
I do too.
Looks
you
great.
know, but we'll see how long it lasts.
My turn.
But I like
next.
it.
My turn to play
You're
with
next.
my
You're
hair.
next. What are you going to do?
I don't know. I mean, really, not much I can do.
You grow it here.
Oh, I like that.
Yep, beard.
Something else that many people will like, one in particular, is the latest polling on Republican presidential candidate.
And he's big on hair too, and hair color.
He's big on hair color.
It's either blonde or strawberry.
Yeah.
We learned that at the mugshot.
We did.
It is former President Donald Trump, who, according to a new Wall Street Journal poll, shows is absolutely running away with the Republican primary polling. It's gone up as well, as you can see, from April to now, from 48% support to 59% support, while you can see the closest challenger, Ron DeSantis, has gone down from 24% to 13%. That's if the primary were held today, according to a Wall Street Journal poll. You can see the yawning gap is 46 points.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, the indictments and then a mugshot, which they thought would seal the deal on the other side against Donald Trump, that this would be like just one step too far. Republicans couldn't possibly put their number one primary candidate, allow their number one primary candidate to be somebody who just had a mugshot in a seedy, jail in Fulton County. And yet here we are.
Yeah, and this poll was taken after the Republican debate. So if people were worried, if we were all positing, would it help? Would it hurt? It didn't hurt him at all. I mean, a 46-point lead. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are two parts of the story are, of course, a 60% lead is 60% at this point is staggering, but also the cratering of Ron DeSantis. I mean, you can't ignore if you're at 24 in April and now you're at 13. And then we're hearing reports about super PACs pulling out money, pulling out of other states. They're starting to try to figure out whether or not they can even continue to finance that campaign. And now, of course, he's overseeing what's going on down in Florida, which is exactly what he should be doing. I don't know what the prospects are for any other candidate at this point, except for the following through of the indictments and investigations and all the legal challenges.
Which is why you're seeing so much on the internet and other conversations on important podcasts, people saying, will the Democrats, will the deep state, what else can they do? Because, there's not a lot left that they can do to stop this train, which is Donald Trump, from moving forward. Will they let him become president? What will it be? And it's an interesting question because I don't know what more they can throw at him. Vivek Ramaswamy, we had him on yesterday, and I think we had a really interesting conversation with him about some of the questions people still have about him. He answers all the questions right. Something I hear for a lot of people say is, I really like him, but I'm not sure I trust him. And it's because he's come to his views so recently, but he seems so sincere in it. I can't question his sincerity myself, but here he is talking about why he thinks he should be the Republican candidate.
I didn't come out of the birth canal spouting Republican talking points. That's true. I came to my views based on my experiences. I was a CEO who, like so many CEOs, was browbeaten into potentially making statements on behalf of Black Lives Matter after George Floyd died. Among CEOs in America, I was unique in saying that I refused to do it, to say that businesses should stay out of politics, should focus on profits. That ultimately led me to a journey that's caused me to arrive at the pro-American views that I espouse today. And that's why my convictions are deeper than a standard politician who will recite, let's say, the slogans provided in a binder by their super PAC. That's not me. I'm an independent patriot who speaks the truth.
And Rachel, you can see that Vivek Ramaswamy's polling has moved from 2% to 5% in that same Wall Street Journal poll that we shared with you a moment ago. I went to a bar in New York City yesterday, watched a little football.
I thought you looked a little rough this morning.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Whoa. Think about
He
that.
didn't say he went to a Ranger.
Yeah, I mean, it was 2 beers in the middle of the day. But that's going to bang around between the ears for the next 4 hours. Somebody around the corner of the bar starts talking to me, doesn't share my politics.
Yeah.
And was very intent on talking to me about it instead of the Texas
Because they knew
Longhorns game.
they knew your politics.
Yeah, and didn't want to let me enjoy the Longhorns. So, but the thing I'm getting at is it's just the same story over and over. It comes back to Donald Trump. That's it. That's all that.
So this was a Democrat, and they're just obsessed, aren't they?
Yeah, and then, I mean, we could talk about issues, but all of the issues ultimately are poured through the prism of Donald Trump. It's not like, there's any logical or ideological consistency that stretches beyond 5 years. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And why I'm telling you that is we're all having this conversation about what will they do, who can do anything to stop Donald Trump. And I think all of that's true for a Republican primary. But when you ask what will they do, you have to think about it through the prism of a general election. And what will be done is everything will be done. And we saw it played out in 2020. Every story twisted, lies told, censorship run amok, and all of that is yet to come. All that hasn't really begun.
Yeah.
You are exactly right. I mean, think of the vision of Joe Biden, that eerie red backdrop, all the evil MAGA, ultra-MAGA Republicans. That was just for a midterm. Donald Trump wasn't even on the ballot. Wait until he is.
But does this mean that stuff's not working?
Well, it's not working in the Republican primary. It's working against, if you add up DeSantis, Ramaswamy, and Trump, which is effectively an America First type group, that's 77%. It's 80% of the Republican electorate.
Yeah.
And this is where Republicans are. He's remade the party. They hate what that looks like. And that's why an op-ed in Politico caught our eye. It was written by the son of George Soros. His name is Alex Soros. He's taking over for his father. So the Open Society Foundation will now be run by his son, who's a 30-something, even more ideological left-winger. Mm. It's not a very well-written op-ed. It's not worth reading. But he did mention this idea of Donald Trump in the op-ed from Alex Soros. And there he is on the right, and that's George Soros on the left. Here's a quote. He said, as someone who spends up to half their time working on the continent and thinks, I guess that means...
That's Europe, dude.
Europe.
Okay. I'm sorry I said dude, but just real quick, my biggest takeaway is it's the center of the universe for so many people.
Yeah.
The world pivots on an axis around, I don't know, roughly Paris?
On the continent. Yeah. We'll get back to the quote. You're exactly right. Because most of the op-ed is about the EU. And thinks former United States President Donald Trump, or at least someone with his isolationist and anti-European politics, will be the Republican nominee. I believe MAGA-style Republican victory in next year's U.S. presidential election could be, in the end, be worse for the EU than for the U.S., and such an outcome will imperil European unity and undermine the progress achieved on many fronts in response to the war in Ukraine. So that money is coming on behalf of presumably Joe Biden, whoever it is, against Donald Trump.
So, in other words, what you're seeing is that they have a ton of money, as you know, George Soros does, and they meddle in all kinds of European countries. So they've been in Ukraine. They've been kicked out of Hungary, famously, which is why he hates Viktor Orban so much. He had a university there where he was, stirring the pot and creating all kinds of trouble there. And they said, you got to get out. Your policies are bad. You're hurting our country. That said, they're laying off a lot of people. But it's not because they're losing money. It's because they're redirecting all of this money. They're overhauling their finances to redirect the money at Donald Trump.
And
that's how big of a threat they think he is.
And that is to my point. It hasn't yet even begun.
Exactly right. Well.
All right, I don't know if it's my eyes are swollen or why I look rough this morning, but I did not attend Burning Man. Like tens of thousands of others. Burning Man is the cultural festival, out. Is it in California? Utah?
Yeah.
California?
I think it's California.
Yeah, Nevada.
Look at all these.
Oh, Nevada.
Well, we've hit 3
We're so
states.
old, you guys. We're like, where did those young kids go? Woodstock?
Now they've left. Look at this. They've been left stranded in Nevada by torrential rain.
That doesn't look environmentally friendly, by the way. The shelter-in-place order comes as authorities investigate a death at the iconic festival.
Jackie Ibanez joins us live with the details. Hey, Jackie.
Hi, yeah, good morning. Things aren't looking good there at all. One death from that rain event is currently being investigated, and authorities say the family has been notified, but no further details have been given about the circumstances of that death just yet. Arrests are halted until further notice. No driving is permitted except emergency vehicles. If you are in BRC, conserve food and water and shelter in a warm space. Attendees are hunkering down this morning together, including celebrities. Video shows DJ Diplo and actor Chris Rock. They're hitching a ride with other party goers after walking 5 miles in the mud. Our own Claudia Cowan is at the festival. And remember that more rain is in the forecast for the area today. But the good news, sunshine is expected to return tomorrow. So let's hope for that. Back to you.
All right. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie. I'd like to see what that place looks like after, because I've gone to several Democrat protests, including the one that was right after Donald Trump was elected, when all the women came out and wore their hats in D.C. after his inauguration. And it was so filthy. They just leave a mess every time these Democrats have a protest. And so I'm curious, because I bet a lot of these are big environmentalists who are stranded now, but will leave all their trash behind as they leave.
Not on my bucket.
The desert.
Sorry, I was distracted by the cover of the New York Post. I just saw it on the other side of you, Pete, and I was like, wow. Think of that really quick. Old man in the Z's.
We're going to get
Is that Biden? Yeah, we are.
He's setting a record. He's now set a record for the amount of time on vacation.
And he was just asked why he hasn't been to East Palestine. He says, I don't have time. But there you see him.
Schedule's too busy.
He's resting.
All right, we're going to turn to a few headlines this morning as well. The convicted murderer who escaped from a Pennsylvania prison Thursday is spotted on home surveillance cameras. In the footage, the fugitive is seen walking in a wooded residential area. Can't really see that. About 1.5 miles away from the Chester County Prison early Saturday morning. The escapee is an illegal immigrant who was just sentenced to life in prison last week for killing his ex-girlfriend in 2021. He's also wanted on murder charges in his home country of Brazil. No word yet on how he escaped. A $10,000 reward is out for information leading to his arrest. And Joe Biden touring communities in Florida hit by Hurricane Idalia.
As I told your governor, if there's anything your state needs, I'm ready to mobilize that support. Anything they need related to these storms. Your nation has your back, and we'll be with you until the job is done.
Oh, he took his meds. Biden also praising Senator Rick Scott after an apparent snub from Governor Ron DeSantis, who didn't join the visit. The governor instead handing out Chick-fil-A to survivors 50 miles away in Horseshoe Beach. Fox Corporation has made a donation to the Red Cross Hurricane Idalia relief efforts. If you'd like to donate, visit redcross.org/FoxForward or scan the QR code on your screen. And college football kicking off with a bang yesterday. The Texas Longhorns taking down Rice 37-10.
Thank you.
Should have been more of a W than that.
I actually agree.
Quarterback Quinn Ewers leading the way with 3 touchdowns. Just down the road in Fort Worth, Colorado pulling off a huge upset over last year's national. Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, wins his first game as Colorado's head coach. The Buffaloes hosting rival Nebraska next week live on Fox. We promoted the game all day yesterday and lived up to it.
Oh, it delivered. It was an amazing game. Back and forth, seesaw the entire time. Now, let's see if we can do this in a way that I can already see you've checked out. Okay, let me explain. So Deion Sanders.
You know what?
No.
Okay.
Deion Sanders is perhaps the greatest defensive player of all time.
So he's a player who becomes a coach.
Correct. Yes. Correct. And a huge personality.
What is his personality? Why is it so?
Bravado, you know.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. He
Prime time, Neon Deion, all this.
Yeah.
But over time, Deion is a man of God, and he wears his faith on his sleeve. See, I got her attention now.
Yep.
She's
Yeah,
watching.
okay,
Now,
like
so
him.
Deion
I'm starting to like him.
decided he wanted to go into coaching, and he went to a historically black college last year, made them very good. He was there for a couple years. Now he's been hired by Colorado, who's the worst program in Division I. Colorado was the worst. And so what you're watching yesterday is he takes over, and I think he turned over 80% of the roster, 90% of the roster.
He got rid of like 60 of the scholarship players on the team from last year and brought in his own guys, including his son. Who played quarterback and was incredible.
Can you do that? You can just get rid of.
Yeah, now
that's a great question,
Okay.
and it's source of its own controversy.
Okay.
But he did, and he won, and it's incredible. It's an upset, and it's an affirmation for Deion and who he is and what he's done in the past. And this is what he had to say after the game.
Okay, thank you for wow. Love this.
Thank you, Jesus. I'm so thankful right now. Look at my son, man. My pop right here. My son, my other son. Yeah. Bro, man, I'm loving these kids. Rick George for giving me this opportunity, man. This is a blessing. Everybody, Buff Nation who supported us, and all the hood that had my back. I thank y'all. God, this is good. We told you to come. You thought we was joking. And guess what? We keep receipts. God bless you, America. Oh, God is good.
There you go.
I want to be read in on all the sports headlines like that. Like, if you actually explain it to me, I actually enjoyed that.
You're right. You need a little human interest behind it.
Yeah. A little context.
A little context. And his son is the quarterback, threw for 500 yards, a school record in this. And they beat TCU, who was second in the nation last
year. Yeah.
On the road at Texas Christian.
Yeah.
So one question, is that normal to allow your son to be, it sounds like nepotism.
But clearly not, though, because he
it worked. He delivered, but I guess.
I mean, that was some controversy as well.
There was, okay.
For sure.
All right.
To show up, my son's the QB. It's a controvecy when it happens in 6th grade.
Yeah, no, totally. in Pee Wee.
Yes. Or for President of the United States.
Yeah. That's true.
All right, coming up, parents choosing an alternative to woke Virginia public schools as a new Christian academy opens its doors. We'll talk to the head of school next.
But first, AOC pushes to take her far-left agenda worldwide and urges the U.S. to apologize for meddling in Latin America. The Socialist Sympathy Tour. Next, AOC's Socialist Sympathy Tour, meeting with leftist leaders in Latin America during a 3-day trip to Brazil, Colombia, and Chile with 10 other congressional Democrats and staffers. She said, quote, "I believe that we owe Chile, and not just Chile, but many aspects of that region, an apology. I don't think that apology indicates weakness. I think it indicates a desire to meet our hemispheric partners with respect." Here to react, Daniel DiMartino, founder of the Dissident Project and Manhattan Institute fellow. He's also a Venezuelan immigrant. Daniel, it's great to have you here. So I'm hearing about this sympathy tour. She wants America to apologize for meddling in Latin America. We can quibble about that. But at this moment, China is meddling in Latin America, and she's supporting the socialists who are partnering with China.
Well, I think
in our hemisphere.
Look, the only medalists in Latin America right now are not America. It's really China, it's really Russia, it's really Cuba. And the governments that she's supporting are governments that are actually destroying their nations and pushing people to escape. I mean, there's a reason people escape to America and not escape to other countries. And I think it's just offensive. Look, I came from Venezuela, and I did it because I love America. Venezuela was destroyed by socialism. And now she's supporting the same governments that are friends with Maduro, that are friends with Castro, and I think it's dangerous to have somebody in the American Congress who is really, I think, a socialist asset.
Yeah, 100%. Now let's talk a little bit about meddling, because the Biden administration has done some very dangerous, I think, against our national interest meddling in Latin America. And I would say that is in the election in Brazil. So Bolsonaro was running against the current president of Brazil, and Lula, and Bolsonaro was pro-America. And our government, along with big tech, meddled in that election. Bolsonaro lost. There were massive protests on the streets. What do you make of that?
Well, Lula, the president that beat Bolsonaro in this election, is a convicted robber.
Yes.
I mean, he was convicted then because of a technicality. He was released, and he's one of the biggest robbers in Latin American history. And now he's president because of the support also of Biden. Biden supported the president of Colombia, who is an ex-guerrilla member. So he was part of an armed guerrilla, a murderer, and he's the president of Colombia now. The president of Chile thinks that, you know, free enterprise destroyed Chile. I wish that AOC, if she had gotten something away from this trip in Chile, is that Chile today is 3 times as rich as it was back in 1973 when it was a socialist country. They went from being the poorest to being the richest Latin American country. They have school choice. They have fully privatized retirement accounts. They have very low taxes, constitutionally restrained budget deficits. Yes, we do have a lot to learn from Chile, and that is the free market's work.
If our Congress delegations are going to take their breaks and go into Latin America, what should be their number one mission? given where we are geopolitically right now in America?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that, there are many Latin American countries that are key for us. Chile is the #1 producer of copper, which is a key mineral for everything, and many other rare metals. Argentina is a country that we should be looking at, right, because of the new election that's going to happen in October.
Yeah.
And then we really need to be building better ties with all of them, right? Because 20 years ago, America was the #1 trade partner of all of Latin America. Today, that country is China.
That's right.
And that's because we stopped paying attention. The problem is not that is that we meddle in Latin America. The problem is that we forgot about Latin America.
Yeah. Or we're too busy selling social agendas that they don't want. Our State Department's promoting abortion and LGBTQ and all that stuff when we should be building commerce ties with them and making sure that the Chinese aren't buying up ports and, as you said, mines, copper mines, rare earth minerals, et cetera. Danielle, it's really good to hear. We don't talk enough about what's going on in Latin America, but it is our hemisphere, and it should matter to Americans. And I appreciate you coming in so early to remind us of that.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Danielle. Coming up, as summer comes to an end, we have the best Labor Day deals, including this AI vacuum cleaner by Shark. But first, Virginia families are flocking to a new Christian academy as controversies mount in Loudoun and Fairfax County schools. We're going to talk to the head of the new school who says parents didn't walk, they ran to this alternative. Stay with us.
It's back to school time, and Virginia families are flocking to a new Christian school that opened its doors for the first time last week. It promises to be an alternative to the Loudoun and Fairfax County schools that face backlash from parents over their progressive agenda. Joining us now is Dr. Sam Bada, the head of school at Cornerstone Christian Academy. Doctor, thanks for being here. We've heard so much about schools in Fairfax and Loudoun County. So you decided to start an alternative, a Christian school there. What's the response been?
Well, Pete, thank you for having me. It's just been a tremendous response. The pastor of Cornerstone Chapel, Pastor Gary Hamrick, made an announcement on February the 6th of 22 that the Lord had put it on his heart to start a Christian school to be an alternative. And so here we are 2 weeks into school, and the response has, again, been tremendous. We have 545 students. We were actually told it's the largest Christian school that has started in history based on ACSI. It is a governing body for Christian schools.
Well, I know a lot of Christian schools, classical Christian schools that have 100 or 200 or 300 students for years, right? It takes a lot of time to build a student body. To have 500 on day one is a reflection of a need. I mean, what are parents telling you about having an alternative like this?
Yeah, the parents are just ecstatic, the children as well. Parents reached their tipping point, I believe, Pete, over COVID. And then after, as they saw what was being taught to their children, the indoctrination that was happening, Christian families they knew that they couldn't stay. Their children spend too many hours.
That's exactly right.
At school. And so they would have to undo this every night if they were, trying to purport Christian values to their children, and to have to undo things like that day in and day out. They just reached the point where they just flocked to our school, and we're grateful for it.
They ran to it. It's such a relief. I know this as a parent, when you drop your kids off at a school where you know your values aren't challenged, they're reinforced. And that's what education should look like. What's your message to other people who are thinking about starting schools or have the same problem in their county? I'm sure it's a challenge, but it's got to be worth it.
It is a challenge, but there's no question, Pete, it's worth it. When you start to see day in and day out and hear the stories of the students with their teachers. The other day, we had a little second grader walking down the hallway, stopped by the nurse's office, saw another student in there, went in and prayed for this student to get better. Things like that, parents just sharing with us that it is like night and day compared to what they experience, and that their children are receiving a biblically grounded education day in and day out. it's important to parents, and they can go to sleep at night feeling like the next day when they send their child to school, they're sending them to a safe and a good place and one that shares their values.
So important. And it's generational change for the kids, for the parents. When you get that type of liberating education, everything changes after that. And I also want to give a huge hat tip to your pastor for having the courage to stand up and listen to God and say, hey, this is something we need to do. More pastors and churches could partner with and create alternatives for parents as well and students. Dr. Baier, congratulations on your school. God bless. Have a great school year. Thank you.
Yeah, God bless you. Thank you very much.
You got it. All right, let's toss it over to Rachel for some headlines.
Hey, Pete, nothing more satisfying than knowing you're dropping your kids off at a school that shares your values. That just really hit me hard. You're so right. Something you shouldn't have to worry about.
Exactly.
Thank you, Pete.
You got it.
Turning now to your headlines, the passenger who went overboard on a Royal Caribbean ship earlier this week is identified as a 19-year-old American college student. The teen from Washington State was traveling with his friends on the world's largest ship when he toppled into the waters off the coast of Cuba. Cuban officials are now searching the coast and land for the teen after looking in the ocean. The U.S. Coast Guard plans to conduct an investigation when the vessel returns to American waters. New overnight, the ticketing area of Los Angeles International Airport is temporarily evacuated due to a suspicious item. Police needed to divert traffic and a bomb squad was called in. Authorities deemed the area safe after a little over an hour, but it's still unclear what that suspicious item was that prompted the investigation. Barbie is now officially the #1 film of the year, raking in over $1.3 billion at the box office. The film about the Mattel doll taking the top spot from the Super Mario Brothers movie. Meanwhile, Oppenheimer surpasses $850 million globally. The film is now director Christopher Nolan's third highest grossing film ever, beating his 2010 blockbuster, Inception. And those are your headlines. Coming up, we break down and sent to Ukraine we break down the money sent to Ukraine versus Maui as the White House defends Biden's response to the devastating fires. Our next guest took matters into her own hands, using her family's boat to distribute supplies on the island. She joins us next with her frustrations. And WWE Hall of Famer Hulk Hogan shares his weight loss secret.
These truly are. The $95 million to fix electric grids in Hawaii and $16 million in humanitarian aid to Maui, whose residents only got $700 per household so far, or the $43 billion in security aid and $26 billion in humanitarian aid to Ukraine. Maui resident Sydney Cook joins us now. Sydney, great to see you this morning. When I read those figures to you and I give you the news that a new appropriation has been made, a new request for money for FEMA, which would help places like Florida, who just dealt with a hurricane, or, of course, West Maui, who dealt with that wildfire, is being packaged with additional funding for Ukraine. How do you feel?
It's upsetting. It's really upsetting. So many people here on Maui that need funding and help, basic necessities and ideas of what they're going to do to rebuild their homes. $700 per household it was a slap in the face to everyone. Hawaii, there's multiple families living in one home. We even have 10, 12 people living in a household, and $700 isn't going to feed them for a week. But Ukraine's getting all of the funding, and none of the money that's been coming in is really being utilized, or we don't see where it's going. It's not going to the people. So it's very upsetting.
I want to be very explicit with the audience and with you as well, Sydney. So I want to read this directly. So the Biden administration is planning to request more funds for FEMA. Of course, at that point, in reading what I'm sharing with you, I think everyone would say, bravo, we need more relief. It's another $12 billion for the rest of this year, but it's being packaged with an additional request for another $24 billion earmarked for Ukraine. $12 billion for the United States of America, packaged with another $24 billion for Ukraine. What does that tell you about the priorities of our government?
Oh, definitely. It tells me that they don't care about the Hawaiian people. They don't care about what's happened here. And we're just put on the back burner yet again. it's about money. It's about the government getting what they can get away with and putting more money back into their pockets. It's not about helping the people here that need the help.
And I want to ask you this on the way out, Sydney, before we say goodbye, but I'm reading here and I know what you've done in the wake of that tragedy and, of course, in the wake of not just the inability of government, but where government made it so hard for citizens in Maui to help one another. You guys, you personally, Sydney, you and your husband, you used a family boat. You walked 5.5 miles. Tell me what you did after what happened in West Maui.
Well, I heard from friends and family. I used to work over on the west side on Front Street. It's on the Hatch, and I have a lot of coworkers and friends and family over there that we were all calling each other to make sure everyone was safe and okay, checking in. And I was pretty shocked to hear that they were not getting any donations. They had water, and they had non-perishable foods like chips and clothing, but they didn't have anything else. And we're hungry, we're starving and thirsty, and have elders and kids that had nothing. So we said, all right, well, we're going to do something about that. And we went to Costco, loaded up what we could, and put it on the boat because they had the blockades. There was no way to get in. So we utilized that and got to Laniapelco, and then found barricades on all the roads and couldn't get it to the people.
Yeah.
So we walked it up the roads and made trips back and forth to make sure we could get it to who needed it. And the cement block wasn't going to stop us from getting it in. So we just continued and figured after a few days, the relief would come. Somebody would show up and bring the necessities and the things that these people needed over there. But day 3, day 4, day 5 came and went, and still there's people over there starving and asking for help. And so, and I wasn't just the only ones. There's so many people here on island and Blue Water Charters and Kihei were filling up their boat. There was so many different relief efforts all over the island just coming together to help one another.
It's amazing. And I've heard that story so many times, Sydney, where the government can't, your neighbor does. Your neighbor takes boats, walks around barriers, walks 5 miles to help one another. And the government says, yes, I'll help you for 50 cents on the dollar to Ukraine. Sydney, thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you.